What's going on, guys? Captain Puppy here. I want to make a discussion video on the past 4 months of One Piece Treasure Cruise, that being from January 2021 all the way to April 2021. This would be akin to Toadsy's video, so if you haven't checked that video out yet, I highly recommend you do so. He goes into depth about all the situations at hand. I'll also be using his reference sheet in terms of the recent global shafts of One Piece Treasure Cruise, and just referring to my own Twitter thread, which you'll see on screen as well, and just giving my thoughts and opinions on this entire situation, and really summing up everything that's been going on, and just giving a player's perspective on everything at hand. As a player that's been playing for 5.5 years now, I think this has been one of the worst periods of One Piece Treasure Cruise. Genuinely, it's been a terrible time period for One Piece Treasure Cruise at hand. The last 4 months have genuinely just been horrible. The game's been managed so poorly, and it's at this point it is just essentially a joke. There was a lot of optimism when Yoshi-san joined in, and that was obviously the optimism around French anniversary time, and we held into World Cruise, which happened end of the year, start of January. But then as soon as the World Cruise ended, the game has just been horrific, and it's just been a terrible sight for all the players and all the situations at hand. What I wanted to do today was kind of go through each of the points that Todd had made in his little post there, and we'll kind of just go through them one by one, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on these situations and why these are so horrific to the player base. So starting from the very top there, we have a No Whole Cake Island event. This was the event I believe that was meant to be centered around Nami and Robin's release, which was a Whole Cake Island Sweet Party Blitz battle. It was occurred on JP and released a custard unit, in which this custard unit is actually quite fantastic. It's a very good unit, and Global has not had this unit whatsoever. No references to this unit at all, except her appearing as a boss in one of the stages for an event during Anniversary itself, but the unit never released. The unit has had many situations in which it could have been released, that being Anniversary being a perfect time for it to be released itself, but she hasn't been released whatsoever, and it's been quite terrible because this custard is quite good of a unit and would be very beneficial for a lot of global players to add to their arsenal of units in order to make better teams. Where everything kind of started was the whole Halloween event. Now, the Halloween event, which entailed the release of Halloween Law, Halloween Mihawk, and then following that Halloween Shanks, was kind of culminated at the point of Kizuna Kid no longer being a Team Kizuna. And this is quite terrible in itself. Kizuna Kid not being a Team Kizuna, while on the surface level it might not mean much, in reality it does mean a lot. Teams Kizuna is an opportunity for players alike to form a team. First of all, introducing a social element to the game that isn't really there aside from outstanding social groups such as Discord communities, Facebook community, people on Twitter, Twitch streams and such. And it makes you form a team together. And as a team, you compete in a Kizuna event where there are lots of rewards, that being limit break materials, rare recruit tickets, legend tickets, even like that, tablets for God's sake. And then you culminate all these Kizuna tickets, and eventually at the very end of it, you get to suspend all these Kizuna tickets and reap your rewards from farming a lot in that event. It's really a sought after event for those that need tablets. And when we don't have a Team Kizuna, it puts the player base in a situation where there's no longer any means to get a large amount of tablets in such a short period of time. You could argue that you could just farm treasure map, but on the contrary, the drop rate for a treasure map tablet is probably far less than that of a Kizuna, especially with like the drop method that you can do, which has been posted plenty of times all over Reddit, in which you can re-roll the box until you get a tablet and check the odds, and then if the odds are higher or lower, you can either start the box again or continue going. Without that Team Kizuna, which means a lot of rewards have been ripped from the player base, quite horrendous at that matter. The issue here now is that with Team Kizuna not existing for a large duration of time before the 6th anniversary on the global version even occurred, the social media team made a big point of posting all over different social media platforms, hyping up this anniversary event as if it was going to be a spectacular event with lots of events and brand new content for players to see, and it'd be a very exciting event. But what ended up happening was people got overhyped for Anniversary, and it just didn't live up to those expectations. Furthermore, the unfortunate issue we have here is that the release of Roger and Odin completely killed any sort of hype or any sort of excitement for Anniversary in general. this is a big issue because Anniversary is meant to be the time in which the global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise makes its stand in the gacha game community, as generally what is seen is that gacha games' culmination of their work is seen between the anniversary period, and this is where, for lack of a better term, money is generated. What we saw is during the March period of One Piece Treasure Cruise, global version on both Android and iOS, it made $600,000 on both versions. In total was 1.2 million. Now you might think 1.2 million is a large sum, but when you look at any other gacha game, and I mean genuinely any other gacha game, even I believe other One Piece games have made more money in that particular period than One Piece Treasure Cruise Global did. The issue here is that that's an anniversary. An anniversary is the situation where you're meant to make a lot of money because people are spending money on your game in order to pull these fantastic units. But what happened with Global's anniversary is that it was a literal copy and paste. There is no argument to be made that the anniversary was not literally run through Google Translate and put into global version of the game. Why do I argue this point? Well, all the issues that occurred on the JP version and that were also compensated for as well also occurred on the global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise. One of these situations being there were not enough choppers and carrots provided to the players in order for them to rainbow those units. So on the JP version that occurred, the JP players received a compensation, and we as a global player base thought, okay, well, if they've received compensation, it means the global team has realized this situation and they're not going to have it occur on the global version. However, what occurred there was literally the exact same error occurred, which just makes me kind of realize that genuinely there was no concern put towards anniversary. And this is frustrating because you had hyped it up, this entire anniversary situation in hand for quite some time prior to anniversary releasing. And doing that is shooting yourself in the foot, because if the anniversary does not live up to the expectations of the global player base, well, now you're in a sticky situation there. And you know what? That exactly happened. The whole entire event was not good. The only change they made to the entire event was actually making Blitz Battle longer. And I'm sure if you count yourself as being a management team that looks at community feedback and the players' feedback, you will know for a fact no one, and I genuinely mean no single person, wants anniversary to be any longer than its allotted duration that it was on for the JP version. If it was 3 days on JP, you make it 3 days on global. You do not extend it. Heck, if you want to lower it, you're more than welcome to do so, but never extend a Blitz Battle. If you want to advertise this as a hard farming ranking event where people compete with one another, no one wants to farm an event for any longer than a 2 to 3 day period. And that is literal facts. No one wants to spend any more time farming Blitz Battle than they have to at all. Especially those that want to rank and want to compete. There are people out there that want to do so, but to have a situation where it goes for 7 days does not support or benefit anyone whatsoever. If anything, it just removes any sort of joy from playing the game in any sort of manner at hand. The card of Big Mom Suga Fest itself was very poor. Very, very poor. The whole Versus Legend release was genuinely just completely underwhelming, and if that just, to me at least, it didn't feel like it ever happened. The Sugo came out, you pulled on the Suga Fest. What events were there to back up the event itself? There were none. There were no events there to back it up. The quote-unquote Blitz Battle that JP had, which itself was a 7-day event, but 3 days were allocated to a Blitz Battle ranking event, and then the other remaining days were allocated towards Chopper Man missions, or, people that couldn't farm during the Blitz have the opportunity to continue to farm and get the Chopper Man missions. Just didn't happen as well. There was no Blitz Battle element. There was no ranking event to it at all. What this means is that you remove so many rewards from the players that want to rank, or even, heck, rewards for people that are ranking in lower ranks, that being rank 3,000 to 5,000 or 5,000 to 10,000. You completely remove any chance for those players to receive any extra rewards from the event itself. Furthermore, going into the Chopper Man missions and changing out Pirate Rumble tickets to just regular 4-star tickets, they're worthless. 4-star tickets are worthless in this game. I don't care if you've pulled a legend off your 4-star ticket and it's turned into a new legend for you. Congratulations on that. But in reality, 4-star tickets are not a way to mend a situation. We wanted Pirate Rumble tickets because Pirate Rumble units are very sought after and are very hard units to acquire at times. Similar to things like limited rare recruits and support units. Why would you remove the Pirate Rumble ticket and make it a regular 4-star ticket? There is no benefit to this whatsoever. Furthermore, on the Kaido vs Big Mom event, there was no login bonuses at all. When the Kaido vs Big Mom event released on JP, I understand it released as a 6.5 anniversary for the JP version, but that doesn't mean you can remove the global version, you can remove the login rewards for this event. It just genuinely makes no sense to me why you would do this at all. I don't understand. I'd love to talk to someone and really understand why these changes occurred. But again, it just doesn't have anything to do with the situation. What it does have to do with, though, is how poorly we're being treated now. I want to touch on the Korean players and the merger and such just for a little bit here before we continue on. Now, again, I want to immediately say at the very start, this has nothing to do with the Korean players themselves. They are not at fault at all. What the issue is here is how it's being handled by the global team for the English and French version players. What I don't understand is how can you not have the back end system to track what people have cleared? Why would you have the Korean players have to reset their versions in order for them to merge? Surely you have a system where a user's ID keeps track of all the events they've cleared, everything they've done in the game. Why would you not have a system in place that does hold that back-end knowledge and that back-end data? What it seems to me is that you don't have that, which is privy to what's being occurring now. And now we're at a crossroad where the Korean players, once they transfer over to the global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise, will have an abundance of content now to clear again, to farm. Chopper Man missions will be back, and this will amount to somewhere between 900 and 1,000 gems. While I personally don't really have a concern for this situation, the issue here lies is that all of these gems are acquired for free. There is no issue here. There is no concern here at all. The gems are acquired for free. That is on the Korean players at hand there. Now, what my concern here is how it will affect the English and French players overall. And what is being affected here is when it comes to things like ranking events and farming and such, now that the Korean players are joining the global players, the English and French version players that being, there will be a disparage in the quality or ability thereof of players to actually farm these events and keep up with the Korean players. Having 1,000 gems at your disposal to just farm an event makes things so much easier for you because there's no concern whatsoever about where your gems are coming from, if you're able to refill stamina and all those situations where you may need gems for things here and there. Having 1,000 gems that you can literally acquire for free makes things so much easier. Now, the issue here and the reason why all this discussion and conversation has been sparked in the first place is because of I believe the confirmation of Kizuna Hawkins is no longer a Team Kizuna. The confirmation here lies within there are no titles that have been added to the game. The banner itself doesn't have a co-op Kizuna written on it whatsoever. So it's just another regular Kizuna. I don't understand why in all hell you would remove Team Kizuna as an event. If you're really lacking on resources, please check yourself. Straight up. Just check yourself. It's not fair that you're removing so many potential events from the global player base and removing so many opportunities for players to actually actively be a part of a community or group and socialize while playing your game, the game that we've been playing for such a long period of time now, and remove all of that and remove any potential to farm any sort of materials, any access to anything in that vein whatsoever. It makes no sense to me at all. Now, what Todd has listed here is the Kisner, Hawk, and Chopper Man missions we're going to lose out on is 12 gems, 16 Rumble Scroll sets, and 1 legend ticket. Now, to most of us, that may not seem like a lot of rewards, but as they are just genuinely free rewards from Chopper Man missions themselves, having 12 gems given essentially for free is always a bonus. Rumble Scrolls in themselves are a rarity to even come by in the first place. So to have them available too would be lovely, but again, we don't get those. Furthermore, a legend ticket removed. For a lot of players, that legend ticket could potentially be a new legend. Legends may be hard to acquire for a lot of free-to-play players, and now you're removing that from the players themselves. It's quite horrendous in effect, and it's become quite frustrating. On smaller and more tangent style notes, the World Journey units have not arrived. We haven't seen the last 2 batches of World Journey units. I believe those World Journey batches are Detective Ace and Marco, and then also the Vivi and Rebecca units as well have not arrived to Global. And at this point, what is seeming to be will be 3 sets of World Journey units not arriving to Global at all. And these units could make you a lot of money if you actually display them in the game. And there have been very much a lot of situations where you could shove this Sugo Fest in a lull period in the game, but you have chosen not to do so, and in turn harming yourself and halving any potential revenue that may come to the game. On top of this, the Ichiban Kuji collab units, while I understand that these units were essentially, or you could argue that these are JP exclusive units because it's Ichiban Kuji, which is a Japanese company, and I believe they are the company behind a lot of the graphics that the graphics you could purchase that had to do with Treasure Cruise and the keychains and stuff, I believe. While it is a Japanese company at hand, it does not mean you should not provide these units to the global players at all. These units are quite good. I believe the Nami is actually quite decent. Plus, that Luffy is a super type unit as well. And now you're removing another unit from the game that people weren't able to get. Plus, alongside the Ichiban Kuji collab was a Rumble Scroll farming island that people could farm Rumble Scrolls. And again, playing privy to the fact that Rumble Scrolls, are very hard to acquire right now, and probably will be hard to acquire for some time in One Piece Treasure Cruise. Having the chance to farm these events is quite, it's quite important to the players. And removing that just tarnishes any goodwill whatsoever. The last thing that Todd has on this list, and I think is, quite an important thing, is the gems spent to rewards event is just non-existent so far. Now, you could argue the point here that the reason why this event may not come to the global version is due to all the Gem Valley situation and all the situations there. They may be a bit scared to introduce this event to global because this error might pop up again, or a similar error of the sort might pop up, which would entail players to have pretty much infinite amounts of tickets come into their game and have every character legend in the entire game. But it's not fair to revoke players from this. This event came around the time of Kaido versus Big Mom, and obviously there was no campaign used for Kaido versus Big Mom either, so we will genuinely not know of this event occurring at all. And as a side note to this as well, 20 gems from the Twitter campaign event will never come to the global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise. To sum up everything I have to say, we've all been playing this game for a very long time. The global version likes to make it known that they listen to their player base, but I disagree. I don't believe that the global team has listened to the community at any point whatsoever. If you're going to act like you're listening to the player base, start actually doing so. We're all fed up with how poorly you are treating our community. We have been a community for quite some time. We have built a lot of roots and connections with one another in terms of having multiple resources as we, a community, have developed. Shout out to Solaris for the One Piece Treasure Cruise database. Shout out to Anlord for all the work that he does. Shout out to Godot and the subreddit Discord for all the work and data mining they do. And there's a bunch of people there as well that do a lot of work in terms of getting the news up on time and actively data mining and figuring out all the events and translators and such. We as a community have built such a strong bond with one another in terms of actually caring about playing for this game and actually caring about the game in general. As players, we are able to find the problems and issues within the game as we've been playing it for so long. It's only fair that people that have been playing this game for 5.5, 6 years, even those on JP that have been playing it for almost 7 years now, are able to kind of distinguish where the problems and issues lie with the game. More so, and what will be very hard to digest here, is that we're actually able of coming up with fair and reasonable solutions to these issues. Just because the general consensus of players might come up with horrendous or terrible resolution to these issues doesn't mean that that is the common denominator for what we think could be a resolution to these issues. If you actively listened to the player base themselves and listen to those figureheads or leaders in the community, those I've listed before, there are plenty of players that have been playing for a very long time that are quite intelligent in the game too. You could listen to these players and actively seek guidance and help from them in order to come up with solutions to these issues that would, one, result in the community being satisfied with the resolution, and two, not be overt or too extra of a solution that will harm your pockets. Maybe you should start listening to the player base, as we as players have the capability to come up with solutions that you may not have thought of at all. Furthermore, I want to talk about the lack of transparent communication. I understand that recently we did receive the news in the game about them understanding the disparage between the Korean players receiving so many gems after the reset, and how this will come up as being unfair for global players, or English and French version players, that is. But that isn't communication enough. You have social media outlets. You have Twitter. You have Facebook. Use those outlets to communicate with your player base, rather than just shoving down pre-made scheduled tweets and acting as if you are actively making these tweets and making these things occur. Start actively asking the community for feedback and for tokens of information and issues that pop up. Use your social media outlets as a point of transparent communication. It is childish at this point that you actively use Twitter and you use your Facebook platforms, but do not show transparent communication with the player base at all. We as a player base deserve to be treated with respect, and at this point we demand that things begin to change. And don't just change things for 1 month and act as if everything is fine afterwards. We demand a positive change that stays in action for the rest of the active game. For as long as this game will continue to be up, we demand respect, and we also deserve that you as a company, Bandai Namco, and as a game, One Piece Treasure Clues Global Version, start treating the players with respect.